Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of my tutorial park. Now in today's episode I'm going to show you how to build a Condor ride. Now a Condor ride is a ride that is built by the company HUSS, and they have built these rides since 1984 if I'm not mistaken. So they've been around for a pretty long time. Basically what a HUSS is, or a HUSS Condor is it's a tower which in the middle has from the tower there's on the tower there's a carriage which can move up and down, which has 4 arms, and on each of these arms there are rotating vehicles. And normally those arms also rotate, but that will not be possible in OpenRCT2, so we're just going to rotate the vehicles at the end of the arms. Now to start off, obviously you'll need to find a location for this ride. Now for the ride itself you will need 5 by 5 tiles. Now I've looked up some real Condors, and they all have a circular base. So I'm also going to build that in this tutorial. But yeah, if your space is tight, you would be able to fit the ride on a base of 5 by 5 tiles. Okay, to start off I'm just going to mark the tiles where I want to build the ride. I think I want it over here. Actually, let's move it over by 1. Okay, and then I'm going to build the base around it. It will be sort of similar to this ride here. So we'll use some single rail coaster track and some steeplechase fence on top. Okay, just going to build a straight track, then a big turn, straight track, then a big turn. And then I'm just going to do the same with some steeplechase track. Alright, these are not the final colors, but I will already hide the supports of the steeplechase. And to do that, we'll just use the invisible color on these supports. And they're gone. Alright, now that we've established where we want the ride to be, we can start building the ride. Now I usually start with the tower, and for that I typically use the roto drop. Now I'm just going to continue building one like usual. Now for the height, I usually take 2 of these base tower elements. So I believe this is the height that we want. And then I'll add 2 more vertical parts. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go in Tile Inspector. I'm holding Control. And I'm selecting this track piece. And then we'll just make it invisible by clicking the eye in front. And we'll do the same with these 3 track pieces. Then I'll take this track piece over here, and then we copy it and we paste it. Then we select the new track piece, and I'm just going to move it upwards like this. Now next thing I'm going to do is hide this platform here, since we don't really need it. So I'm selecting no entrance, no platform here. And now there's still this support here, which I want to be invisible. So I'm just gonna take this track piece here, and I'm moving it below surface, and that hides the supports. And I think this makes for quite a nice tower for the Condor. Okay, the next thing that I want is some arms, and for that I'm going to use a monorail track. Okay, I'm just gonna start here. I will hold Control and hover over this tower piece, so then we build at the same height. And yeah, these arms, I'm gonna make them diagonal. So I'm just going to build out a few tiles. Then I'm going to make a curve. And yeah, what I need to do is make it so that it's in the middle here. Let's see, now I don't arrive in the middle. So I'm going to build out 1 more piece here. And now we should be in the center. So you should check from all angles. It looks like we're in the center here. Okay, and now we also need to make the other arm that's perpendicular to this one. Okay, I should be in the center now. That's where I am indeed. Perfect. Okay, I'm just building two diagonal track pieces over here. Now I want these arms to be a little bit more thick, so I'm going to build another track piece right above it. Now I'm just going to take one of these track pieces, going down, Spectre, hold Control, select it, copy it, paste it, and I'm going to move it upwards. By the way, if you didn't notice yet, you will need to build with clearance checks disabled to be able to build through these other track pieces. I also have the cheat to allow building track at invalid heights enabled. That's what allowed me to build the second layer of the fence. And having this cheat enabled also allows me to just continue building here at this height. So what I'm going to do now is make another layer for these arms. But here at the end, I'm going to dip down. And I'm going to do the same over here. Here at the end, I'm going to dip down. Okay, I don't need... well, I'm going to keep this track piece. And now I will build backwards and do the same for the other arm. Alright, all these other track pieces, other than the arms, I will remove them. Alright, I will now hide these supports. Now there's no water under here, so I will just hold Control, select the supports, and I will just move them under surface. Now we can build the track for the ride. Now I typically use bobsleigh coaster vehicles for this ride. You can also use other vehicles. For example, vehicles from the suspended swinging coaster will usually also look pretty nice, or the airplane vehicles. Yeah, it won't be very realistic with them, but it usually does look pretty nice. If you use those, yeah, it's best to just use inverted track while building this ride to make sure that the vehicles stay at the correct height. But bobsleigh coaster vehicles are vehicles for a sit-down track, so yeah, we can just you can just follow the tutorial as I show you here. Now for the ride station, yeah, I'm just going to build one station piece here, and from there I'm just going to build upwards, and I want to make sure that we're a little bit under this track here with our track, so that there's still a little bit of space for the vehicles to travel under here. So I'm going to make it a little bit less tall, and yeah, these arms are at 60 meters, so probably want 3 meters or so below it. Okay, I'm building this with a chain lift. That's just to make sure that the coaster moves forward here. When you build the track here under the arms, make sure you disable the chain lifts again. Alright, I'm now just going to make a circular track that goes all around this 5x5 area. Okay, and when we've arrived here at the end, here we're under the arm. Here I'm just going to make a 90-degree turn. And here I'm going to make a little circular track. And over here I'm going to do the same. And I'm going to make one of these under every arm. And where we deleted the track here, I'm going to rebuild it. I'm just going to quickly do the same for the other arms. Alright, now we have this track, circular track under each of the arms. Now what we want behind the station is some space for the vehicles to actually spawn. Now I'm just gonna put straight track behind the station, because if I do that, that means that all the vehicles will spawn with an equal spacing. That will make our life easier later. Okay, I will just quickly build an entrance and an exit. The locations don't really matter that much. And what I'm going to do now is build an underground control track. Now from here I will temporarily delete this piece of track, and here we will just build downwards, and we can rebuild this track piece here. Okay, I will just use the cutaway view. Well, I will use the cutaway view soon. We can still see what we're doing. Okay, we're pretty deep underground now. Okay, we're now right next to the station, as you can see. We're very deep underground. You don't have to go this deep. Your map probably isn't as high off the ground as the map in Tutorial Park is. But yeah, make sure you're just a bit underground. If you don't have any space underground, you could alternatively just make the underground track and the underground vehicle completely invisible later. Okay, we're right next to the station here underground. So over here I'm just going to place a straight track piece. Alright, now that that is done, I'm going to use the cutaway view. So we have a good look, can have a good look underground. And over here I will make the control track for the ride. So I will just use the wooden wild mouse, just because it has a clear visual distinction between itself and the steel wild mouse. Now I'm gonna hold control, mouse over this track piece, and I'm going to build a station in this direction. Here I'm going to put a chain lift on this track. And over here I'm making a straight track piece, and now these tracks should be merged. Now before I'm gonna build any further, I'm gonna go in Tile Inspector. I'll select the wooden wild mouse here. Now these tracks here are merged, and when a vehicle comes from the steel wild mouse track, I want it to continue on the wooden wild mouse track. So in order for the train to continue on the wooden wild mouse track, I'll make sure that the wooden wild mouse track on this tile is lower than the steel wild mouse track. If I don't do that, the ride will just fly off the track here. Yeah, the wooden wild mouse track is now lower in the list, so now the train should continue onto this track. Okay, in order to determine the duration of the ride and the speed, we can later set the chain lift speed of the ride, and yeah, the length of the track here basically will determine how long the ride will take. Alright, I think this is a decent ride length for the ride. And yeah, as long as you make sure that you switch the order of these in the Tile Inspector so that they merge correctly, you should now be done with the control track. Alright, for this ride we will have, when you use the bobsleigh coaster vehicles, you can fit 5 of them on every little circle here. And we'll need 1 on the underground track, so together that makes 21 vehicles. Okay, I've selected 1 train. Well, it says 1 car, but it's 1 train and 21 cars per train. Okay, now the ride is not a complete circuit, so I'm going to set the ride to powered launch without passing station. I'll set this to 3, so it's not 0. And then we will test and immediately close the ride. Now I want this first vehicle to follow this track to be low, and I want the rest of the vehicles to go on this upper track. And at each of these junctions we should split off 5 trains to go on their respective sections. So with the Tile Inspector I'm going to hold control, select this track piece. Yeah, I want this curve to be below the straight track piece. Now it looks like it's below the straight track piece in the list, so the train should move onto this section when it passes by. Over here we have the same. Over here the curve is also below the straight track piece. Alright, I will now test the ride, and when the first vehicle is over the edge here, I will pause the game so we can split them off. Okay, I've hidden the support so it's easier for us to see what's happening here. So I'm going to test the ride, and okay, the first car is now on the downward trajectory, So in the tile inspector, I'm going to select this track piece, which is the track piece leading upward, and I'm going to move it below the track piece leading downwards. So the rest of the train should move upwards here. Alright, there we go. Looks like it's all going well. Now, as soon as the first 5 vehicles have passed over this track here onto this track here leading to this little curve, I'm going to pause the game once again, and I'm going to switch the order of these 2 track pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can see it has started to move onto the curve. If I switch the track order now, the rest of the train should move onto the straight track. There we go. I'm going to repeat this for the other 2 sections here. Now, it looks like I didn't make the track behind these vehicles long enough. So these last 5 vehicles have all bunched up here. Yeah, I will just move them apart from each other manually later. Alright, all these vehicles are now on their respective circular tracks. Now, one thing you will notice is that 2 of these vehicles are inside of each other on these sides. So we'll move them apart a little bit. Well, and for these vehicles, we'll have to move them all apart. Now, I'm going to close the ride now. I'm just going to close it once so the vehicles stay on the track and they don't despawn. And now we're just gonna wait for this lower vehicle here to finish a circuit of the track. Now we'll want the ride to run a little bit faster, so I'm going to up the lift hill change speed a bit. And doing that should also make these vehicles swing a bit faster. And you can see they swing outwards, which is what we want on this ride. And it's also a good reason why we chose the bobsleigh trains for this ride. Alright, the ride has finished a circuit, so now I'm just going to move all these vehicles apart with the tile inspector. I mean with the ride vehicle editor. Now first I'm going to find the vehicles here that are bunched up a bit. It's easier when you disable the tracks or make them invisible. So these 2 vehicles are inside each other. I'm just going to move this one forward a bit. And I'm going to move this one backwards a bit. I'm going to do the same for the other ones. Alright, when you're done moving the vehicles, I recommend giving them a nice color. What I usually do is give all these groups a different color. For example, blue, red, green, purple, for example. So yeah, to do that, pretty easy. Just select different colors per vehicle. I recommend first selecting all vehicles in the same color and put these in the color that you want the first group to be. For example, like this. And then select different colors per vehicle. Now, vehicle 1 doesn't really matter what color you make it, since it's going to be underground. Now, vehicle 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6. Well, I will keep them red. And then for the rest, I will color all these vehicles in nice colors. Alright, the vehicles are now colored. Now, most likely this ride will not calculate any stats when we open it. So, in order to already fix that, I'm just going to move up one of the track pieces that leads to this section. So, for example, let's just take this track piece, and I'm just going to move it up. So that way the stat calculation function, when it moves through the track, it cannot get stuck here in one of these infinite loops, but it will just end here. If you have a ride that has an infinite loop, you can get the stat calculation function to get stuck in it, and then none of the stats for any of your rides will get calculated. So this is a good thing to do if your ride doesn't calculate any stats. Okay, now that this is all prepared, I want this track here to be invisible, so I'm going to change the ride type to lift. And I will also quickly erase the floor here again. Now the ride should now be functional, so I will just quickly put it in test mode again. Now now what I want is for guests to actually be able to ride this. So for that, I'm going to make the entrance visible again. Just going to set it to plain. And I'll have to move the entrance and exit for the ride. Now to do that, I'm going to go in Tile Inspector. I think I want the exit to be right here, and I'll make the entrance over here. So I will just remove these track pieces that are currently here. And I'm going to hold Control, select this exit. I'm going to copy it, then paste it to over here. And then I will click Make Usable. So now this is the exit for the ride. I will select this exit. I'm going to remove it. And for the entrance, I'm going to hold Control, select it. I will copy it. And I'm going to paste it over here. Now I will rotate. I will select the entrance and I'm gonna rotate it. Now make sure that the bigger door is to the inside and the smaller door is on the outside. The smaller door is always what the path or queue will connect to. Now I'm going to delete this entrance. I'm going to select this one again and press Make Usable. And when that's done, we can quickly connect the queue to the right. Okay, there's one thing that I forgot. So I'll quickly go into the Ride Vehicle Editor plugin again. Now the ride here is still selected. For vehicle 1, I'm going to set the number of seats to 0. That way no guest will actually go into the underground vehicle that's here. Alright, before I open the ride up to guests, I see that the stats of the ride are quite bad. Now, the ride is of the lift type, which is a transport ride, so guests will ride it regardless of its stats. But the excitement rating is still quite low, which means that not a lot of guests will probably head for the ride when we open it. So I'm going to go into the Ride Vehicle Editor plugin once again, and I have the ride selected, and we're going to edit the stats a little bit. Now these rides are not too exciting, so first I have to set freeze rating calculation, and I'm just going to make the excitement a little bit higher. This is probably reasonable. Now the higher the excitement of your ride, the more likely that the guests will actually head for the ride. So if you have more exciting rides in the park, you probably shouldn't put it too high unless you want all the guests to head for this ride instead. Now for the intensity, this is probably a good value. And the nausea, we can probably make it pretty high, since a ride like this is probably pretty nauseating. Alright, the ride is now functional. So now I'm just going to make it look a little bit nicer. Now there's a few ways you can make the ride look nicer. Something that I like to do is to actually put a few roto-drop vehicles around these arms. So for that I will just build a ride above this tower. Now it doesn't really matter what kind of a ride you use. Here I just used a car ride. So I'm just going to make a station above the ride with an entrance and an exit. And for the ride vehicle of the ride, I will choose Roto-Drop. Here we go. And I will give it 2 cars. Okay, I'm going to change the ride type to something that allows an incomplete circuit, like powered launch. I will test and immediately close the ride. Now we're gonna use the plugin that we use for everything in this tutorial. Looks like the ride is already selected. So Roto-Drop train 1 is selected. So I'm going to use the tweezer and I'm going to move it right here on top of this tower. And then we're going to change the Z position. And I'm going to make it so that it's just below this these arms here. And I'm just going to paint them in the same color. And I'm gonna do the same for the other vehicle. Okay, these Roto-Drop vehicles, I think they make it look just a little bit nicer. And on the real Condors, you will also find some sort of structure around the arm, around the tower here to which these arms are connected. So I think this just adds a tiny bit of a realism to the ride. Now, something which I noticed is that at the end of the ride, the vehicles all just make a sudden stop. So in order to make that a little bit more gradual, we could add some brakes over here on the control track. So I will just use the cutaway view again. For this control track, I will change the ride type. Let's change it to a ride type which actually has brakes. So I'll use the wooden roller coaster. No, I think we should be quick enough to do that. I will disable the chain lift, and here I'll make a brake section. Let's do 14 and 6 kilometers per hour. And that should make the stop more gradual. Here you can see at the end it slowed down more. The stop at the end was less sudden. Alright, something which we still need to do here is make the ride look a bit nicer. So for that, I'm just going to lower the ground below this ride, and I'm going to add some base blocks. And it will kind of look like what we did over here. I like using these runway pieces for a situation like this. So I will make some nice shapes on the ground. Okay, I've now placed these runway pieces down. I'm going to make the entrance and exit invisible. And I'm going to place some fences here instead. Now I like to use some fences here that have gates. So I think I'm just going to use this mesh fence. Alright, and then I'll just decorate around here with lots of foliage to hide these runway pieces that are sticking out. Okay, something which we will probably also want is an operator hut. I think I will just place it over here, but you can place it anywhere along the side where you want. Now I'm just going to copy one of the existing operator huts that we already have in the park. Alright, over here we still have the supports of the base that are sticking out. So I will just hold Control, select each of these supports, and I will make them invisible. Now I have a hotkey for this, Control Q, so that makes it a little bit faster. So in the options you can actually set hotkeys for everything if you want. Okay, I'm quickly gonna focus on the top of the tower. Now these rotor drops on this car ride, we can make these invisible. Now I'm first going to set the inspection time of this car ride to never. A mechanic cannot actually reach this ride, and I don't want them to walk around here in circles. So now mechanics will no longer head for this ride. And I'm going to change this one to Crooked House, so it's now invisible. And for the station style, I was going to select no entrance. So now this ride should no longer bother us, and these vehicles will just stay put. Now for the top of Condor ride, you can always do something nice with it. Now I actually quite like the top of the rotor drop as it is, but for example you could put some scenery on top. Needs to be the other way around, I think. Yeah. For example, this eye here, or this sun here with an eye. There's many things you could put on top of the tower here if you want. But yeah, for the rotor drop, I think this tower piece actually looks nice, and it should also not be too difficult to actually put a guest here on top, if you want. Now with that, the rotor drop is completed. Like I said earlier, you can vary a lot with this track. You could also put suspended vehicles here. It's always nicest to use vehicles that swing outwards as they rotate. Now I've also built this ride with these mine vehicles from the wooden wild mouse. They also swing outwards, but in the other direction. Cannot explain it over here. Same for these mouse vehicles, they also swing outwards. Yeah, for the suspended coaster, I think most vehicles also work well. But of course, then it's better to use track that's a bit higher, because when you build it the ride with one of these suspended vehicles, then they will sit below the track, and you'll probably want them to stay close to the arms. So keep that in mind when you build it with suspended vehicles. Okay, to end this tutorial, I'm going to once again put one of my patrons in the park as an entertainer. Alright, H Machine, thank you so much for supporting me on Patreon. The support is really appreciated. And I hope you enjoy your spot here in the park on top of this Condor ride. And if you're watching this video and you also want to support my channel, you can find a link to my Patreon channel in the video description. The support is really appreciated, and all my patrons will get a spot in the park as an entertainer. Alright, that's going to be it for this tutorial. If you liked this video or if you learned something today, please give this video a like. It would really help out my channel. And if you want to see more videos like these, you can always subscribe. And I would love to hear in the comments what you think of this tutorial. Alright, that's going to be it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you again in the next one. See you later.